The Guided Goals podcast gives you the tools, direction, and resources you need to pursue your passion project. I'm Debra Eckerling, Project Catalyst, and this is the Guided Goals podcast. Our guest today is Julia Drake, and we're going to talk about getting media coverage for your passion project. Julia is the founder and co-owner of Julia Drake PR, a boutique literary publicity company that specializes in media campaigns, social media marketing, innovative book tours, author websites, and promotional videos. Welcome, Julia. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Deborah. I'm happy to be here.
Do you want to share anything else about your background?
Yeah, I think, talking about guided goals, I think, a big part of your evolution, as a person and in your career, I really believe that it should be organic and you need to just, trust your heart. And I think that was my journey. I came to the US. I was born in Germany and I came to the US when I was 19 on an acting scholarship. And I just realized that I was a terrible actress, but that I loved writing stories. And so I was writing stories for my classmates to perform. And I realized that I was much better suited for being behind the camera. And so that's how my writing background got started. And I started writing and I just didn't know anything about the book world. And so I started writing working with a couple of writers. One of them being New York Times bestselling author Hope Edelman. Got really lucky. And so I worked with her on her book and she had other friends and I just kept working on books, more and more books. And at some point it was like, wait, you don't have your own company? And I said, okay, yeah, maybe I should have my own company. And so that's kind of how I got started with book PR. But it really came from a place of just realizing that I love telling stories. So that's, yeah.
And it evolved from something you loved into something you loved even more, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And now, we've worked with over 200 clients from New York Times bestselling authors to self-published authors, and from diehard novelists to writer entrepreneurs who see books more of an extension to their business. So it's a lot of fun.
Entrepreneurs need to be scrappy and they need to do a lot of things themselves. And I think one of the most difficult things is to get coverage for themselves because especially as people who work with other people, I coach writers and entrepreneurs. I help them complete their set goals and pursue their passion projects. And I'm like a touchstone. I'm touchstone cheerleader, project manager, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't want to say it's really easy to toot someone else's horn, but when it comes to tooting your own horn, I think that's where people are a bit more challenged. Would you
Yeah.
agree?
Yes, I think that's absolutely true. I definitely, if I had to promote myself, I think it would be much harder. It's so nice to brag about other people. So, yeah, that's definitely true.
So, what do you recommend? Oh, let's start with that then. So, what do you recommend for people who aren't used to talking about themselves and promoting themselves? What are some things that they can do to get started to get into that mode?
Well, I think there are two things. Number one, I think it's important to talk about how the media landscape has changed. It used to be that coverage in one of the legacy outlets like the New York Times, Los Angeles Times, big newspapers or big TV shows, really made the difference. But now, because of the digital revolution, our media consumption and the way we find media that we like to consume has become completely digitized and fragmented. It's almost like we can now completely customize the experience that we want to have. And I think what that means for getting media coverage, is that you really need to think of media as people. They also wake up in the morning with their hair messed up. They have to take their kids to school. They worry about deadlines, and social media has made it now so easy to establish connections with these people, like real connections, and really have a relationship with them before you reach out to them to cover your product or your business or, whatever it is. And I think that's the place you need to come from. You really need to come from, number one, building a community around you of people that are like-minded and that are interested in your content and servicing them, not being like, this is me, but really saying like, how can I serve you? That's number one. And once you have that community, then it's really about finding the right media that are interested in what you have to say. And it's really a relationship. So you don't feel like you're reaching out to them saying, it's all about me and I'm so great. But it's kind of saying, hey, I'm reaching out to help you because I know you're writing these types of stories. And I think mine would fit perfectly, into your beat. So that's really, I think, what has changed a lot. And I think in my company, it used to be that traditional media coverage was the most important. That's what we would focus on. But now we do pitch a lot of media contacts via Twitter or Facebook, or whatever, social media hub that they frequent. And they're very responsive because it's not such a, hello, I'm this and this, but it's just kind of a one-liner, and tease them with that. And then they check you out, and then, it's just something that evolves. So I think it has become easier actually to make connections with media and to actually get high tier coverage. So that's good.
So, what would you recommend? Because you said you want to find the right people. So, how does somebody find and I know it sounds so general, but it is.
No,
So how would someone go about finding the right person to cover them?
right. So I call it the wanted list. And that is really the first step in getting media coverage is figuring out, who are the people that you want to reach.
Hmm.
And, I mean, there are various ways. I think, one thing that I use is I use something like Flipboard or News 360 or Feedly, to kind of figure out, who are the people that write in my interest areas, and I check that every day. And that's where you can see, who are the people that write the type of stuff where they might be interested in, my business or my product. So that's one way of finding those people. There are also services, like Bulldog Reporter, or there are services that, where you can search, by interest areas, and they're going to spit out, media contacts and radio and newspapers and TV, that fit your interest area. So there are a lot of different ways, but honestly, I mean, I go onto Google and I just say, the top 10 magazines, women's interest magazines, or, the top three, gardening shows or whatever it is. I mean, that's the amazing thing with Google. You can pretty much find anything and anyone. so, so I think that's a good start. The other thing that helps too is if well, you need to know who your competitors are. Then look at where did they get covered? If there's someone where you feel like this is the person I want to be in 10 years, look at where they're getting covered, and work your way toward that.
Okay, so just to recap, so the first thing is to find like a reader service. So you have articles coming to you to read every day. So you
Correct.
have an idea of who the authors are that are covering your topic. The second, it would be to use a service like Help a Reporter, and I'll have all the links in the show notes where you're getting a list of reporters looking for stories that you can respond to.
Yeah.
The third thing is Google search. So search for the top whatever you want to get on in your industry and then pursue from there. And then the fourth is to Google your competitors and then look under news and see where they're being placed. And
Exactly.
and then you want to for most of these, especially except for the ones where the reporters are coming to you, you want to see who the people are, not just the publication, right?
Correct. It's about the people, not necessarily publications, just because, now what has happened too is that it used to be that it was all about the editorial meeting. So reporters or staff writers didn't really have a lot of leeway in terms of what they were writing. But now because of the digital revolution again, there really are no editorial meetings anymore. People just publish whenever, they're ready. They might shoot it by their editor, but so there's more freedom for them to really jump on a story if they're interested. So it's really more about focusing on the people, not so much the publications.
Okay, so you find the people. I have my hit
Yes.
list of like 10 people who I know are
Right.
just dying to write a story about me or my business.
Yeah.
Now, what do I do? What's next?
Now, now you have to really look at your platform and whether you're ready. It's basically like, are you ready to go out on this date? You want to look your best when you go out to these people because you know that they're going to check you out, right? So one of the things that also has to do with the digital revolution is that now it used to be that editors at publications or radio shows, whatever, that they put out the content that they thought their audience was interested in. And now it has completely changed. Now, because of social media, it's about what can we put out that is going to get us the most shares, the most social buzz and all of that. So, which is why when you reach out to media now, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to look at your platform and see whether you have a presence. Because they're thinking, okay, if I write the story about this person and it's super interesting maybe, but they don't have any followers and no one has ever heard of them, then they won't be able to help me to get that story out. So I really feel like before you reach out to these people, really focus, 3 to 4 months. I mean, just have something that when people look at it, they say, this person is really serious and they know what they're talking about. So that I would say that's, in terms of the macrocosm, that's step number 2, really look at what you got, So, and I think, and once you have that and you feel comfortable, you feel like, there's really something there. You have a social media presence, you have a website, there's credibility there. Then the next step is to basically figure out what your pitch is. What is it? I mean, do you want get your business covered, or do you have a book, or what is the news angle here? And one of the things that we definitely have realized that even if you write something that's fiction, or it's all about current affairs. People are all about current affairs. So no matter whether what kind of product you have or business, you have to know what's going on in the news, and you have to somehow tie it into that. So that's one angle. That's one part of your pitch. And then the other part is what I always do, and I think that's really helpful, is that, you have your wanted list, right? Then you pull these people up and you look at their face and you look at their writing and you figure out, what are they all about? And that will really help you craft your pitch, because you basically want to write to them in a way that they write. So it really reflects, who they are as a person. And that's really helpful. So that really helps you to write a pitch that's very concise, and that's personalized, and it's all about personalized pitches. Yeah, I mean, that's there's no like mass press releases or any of that. It doesn't fly anymore. It just doesn't. So that's just a waste of time. So it's really about quality versus quantity.
Do you have an example of someone that you've looked at, said, okay, this person writes about X, I'm going to pitch them X?
An example?
Yeah, an example just from your experience because, I mean, you wrote to me, Deb, I see you're doing a podcast. I would love to talk about one of these 3 things, which
Yeah.
I guess that's a good example. Do you have another one?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, any pitch that I send out, it's always about, oh, I saw you wrote this article, or, even go even a little bit further. I mean, for example, there's a writer at the New York Times, and, she writes for the Motherlode, which is, a big blog on the New York Times. But, she also has her own blog where she writes about her children and her experiences. And so I had a client whose experiences, mirrored kind of what this reporter was going through, and my client had a new book out. So I didn't only write her, oh, I really like your articles on Motherlode, but I was able to go one step deeper and really talk about, I've read your blog, and I know what you've gone through with your son, and my client had this and that. So it really was a much more personal pitch, and she literally replied within 2 minutes. So it's really about the really getting into what drives people, and because I think there's one part is their job. Obviously, they want to do their job well, but the other part is their life, their emotional inner life. And if you can tap into that, then you're golden.
Are there mistakes people make when they're pitching and trying to get coverage?
Yes. I would say number 1 is, and I call it the pissing puppy syndrome. And basically, because when you see puppies and they get so excited and they're just like peeing all over the place. Well, it's that same thing with people where they're not patient enough, and they just want to go out there. They just want to, get their business, their product out there, and they don't think about that they're not ready, whether their book isn't ready and it has in the first 10 pages is at 100 spelling errors, or whether they reach out and then they forgot to pay for their domain name on their website and their website has just gone down. I mean, it's just these it's basically like really make sure that you're ready before you go out. That's one thing. I think the other thing too is that people are not persistent enough. These media contacts are super busy, and they will be really appreciative if you follow up with them. And so I think a lot of people, they send out one email and they never hear back, and then they just assume, oh, they weren't interested. And you really need to follow up at least 3 or 4 times. And also it's not a trick, but it's something you should just be doing. When you send out your email, you can now in Gmail, and I think with other email services too, you can track your email and you can track whether that email was opened or not. And I do that with all my emails just because, for a lot of journalists, their spam filters might be really high or they're just super busy. So sometimes you might send an email, and they just never get it. And so it's really important that okay, they opened it. So that's kind of like the first clue to, okay, and they didn't respond. But then it could still be that they're interested, but they're on deadline and they maybe saved your email and maybe forgot to save it. So there's just many reasons why people don't respond. And I feel like if you know that you have a compelling story and you did your research, then you should totally be confident to follow up with them via email and then pick up the phone. And I know that's super scary, but I really think like that's one thing in my business that, I do all the time. And I was so scared of it. I mean, it was just like, I would get cold sweat and I wouldn't be able to sleep the night before. But, you just, it's like anything, you just start doing it. And then all of a sudden you just realize that the person on the other end is a human being. Hey, so it's, so follow-ups, I think it's the other thing that people forget about.
This is so much information, and it's really, really, it's very compact. I mean, I like my short shows because these are quick and easy things, and you just gave people like a bunch of them, but that's okay.
Yeah, there's a lot.
But just what I'm hearing is though, so you make your hit list, then you develop your website while you're developing relationships and watching these people on your list, and then you go out and
Exactly.
pitch. Easy, right?
That's it. You summed it up perfectly. Easy. Exactly.
What about work-life balance? Because that's a challenge a lot of entrepreneurs have, especially those like you running their own business. What do you do to make sure you're not always and only working?
Um, well, I think you have to be really disciplined, with your time. And I think what I do is that, I make sure that after I've sat on my butt basically for, however many hours, that I get out and I get very physical. I'm, very physical. I love the outdoors. So every day, even though I feel like I'm on a deadline or whatever it is, I just make myself get up and at least walk around the block, or do something, get outside. There's something where if you step back from your computer, all of a sudden the world becomes so much bigger, you know? So I think that's really important. I also think our mobile devices will be the end of us if we don't implement certain rules. So for me, like after 7, my phone just gets turned off. I just, no beeping, no noises, no whatever, it's just, and yes, I've missed certain things sometimes because of that, but still, I feel like if I weigh that, compared to what would happen if I had my phone on all the time, I'm like, I think I can live with that. So I think that's another thing.
Okay, so this is the part where I give a personal and professional goal so the people who are listening can take these great ideas and go onward. And I think we'll do 2 personal goals because I like both of what you said, which is to take a walk around the block once a day, like every work day, and try it for a week and see what sort of impact it has on your life.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is to turn your I don't expect people to actually turn their phones off, but maybe turn their phone on silent after 7 or 8 o'clock, and also see how that impacts your life and make adjustments, but figure out a way to use these tips to give yourself more balance, right?
Yeah.
And I'm also going to do two professional goals because I love basically everything you said. So I
Thank
would
you.
say the the first thing is to make your hit list. So go and find 10 people that you want to do coverage on you or your business or whatever, and then start writing out pitches. Even if it's not yet time to send it, but keep an ongoing list of things about yourself that you can pitch when the timing is right.
That's perfectly put because, I feel like it takes a while. Once you write that first pitch, you let it sit a little bit, it's going to get better and better and better. So it's really nice to start early. So that's great comment. Yeah.
Okay. Any final thoughts? Any final kernels of advice that you want to share?
I just want to say how I'm so impressed with you and what you have created. You're an amazing entrepreneur, and I'm just,
Thank you.
yeah, I just wanted to, tell you. And thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, and thank you, Julia Drake PR, for these great tips on how to get coverage. And anyone who is listening out there, you can go to guidedgoals.com and read the show notes and watch or listen to the interview. And you can do it. I mean, even if you're not accustomed to tooting your own horn, get accustomed to it because that's what's going to get you out there and help to make your business a success. So just go on out there and go for it.